Welcome back to the deep dive, where we take what you think you know about a topic, toss it out the window and replace it with something way more fascinating. Today, we're heading to the African savannah to confront one of the world's most, misunderstood creatures, the
Yeah.
hyena.
Oh, absolutely. It's an animal that has been universally typecast.
Yeah.
For centuries, the hyena's been the villain,
Yeah.
cackling, cowardly scavenger.
Right, the low-life cleanup crew. You see it everywhere, from ancient folklore to, the Lion King.
And that reputation is just.
Yeah.
It's profoundly inaccurate. It completely misses the immense molecular, cognitive, and evolutionary genius of the entire family Hyenidae.
So our mission today is pretty ambitious. We're here to systematically dismantle those myths.
We are.
We're going to use genetic analysis, social science, some frankly astonishing behavioral facts to really redefine this creature.
Yep.
Especially the spotted hyena. It's a strategic apex predator and a social genius.
Exactly. We've got a stack of studies here, everything from advanced long-read genome sequencing, which tells us how they handle disease, to these really complex problem-solving experiments that give us a window into their brains.
This is a deep dive that should, I think, fundamentally change how you see these animals.
We really should.
Okay, so let's jump right in with what might be the biggest scientific surprise of all. The thing that challenges what you see with your own eyes. If I say hyena, you instinctively picture them next to dogs and wolves.
Right.
They just look like these weird, hunched-over, spotted canids.
Right. Visually, the resemblance is just. It's undeniable. You've got that classic dog body plan. They have the long snout. They're built for running. They operate in these big packs they call clans.
Yeah.
But here's the big taxonomic shocker. Hyenas are not dogs. They are not even close relatives of dogs.
This is one of nature's biggest practical jokes, isn't it? So in the order carnivore, you have two main suborders. You've got the dogs, wolves, bears, seals. They're all in Canifornia, the dog-like carnivores.
And hyenas, they fall squarely in the other group, Filiformia, the cat-like carnivores.
Cat-like.
Genetically, it's not even a question. Their family, Hyenidae, shares a much more recent common ancestor with cats, civets, and genets than they do with any dog.
So hold on. The animal we all mistake for a stray dog from the savannah is actually genetically closer to a house cat.
It's wild, isn't it? And it gets even more specific. If you really want to find their closest living relatives, you have to look past the cats to the mongooses.
Mongooses.
And even things like the fossil from Madagascar. That's their real family.
So that similarity, the way they hunt and run like a dog but being genetically a cat relative, that has to be a textbook example of what we call convergent evolution.
It is the textbook example. Convergent evolution is basically nature saying, look, if the job requires a screwdriver, I don't care if your family builds hammers, I'm going to give you a screwdriver. It happens when distantly related species evolve similar traits because they're facing the exact same pressures.
So the environment is like a mold, and it just forces different materials into the same shape.
Precisely. The savannah presented a challenge. How do you hunt big, fast animals like wildebeest? The dog lineage evolved endurance, speed, and cooperation to solve that. And completely independently, the hyena lineage, coming from a totally different cat-like root, evolved the exact same toolkit because they had the exact same problem to solve.
That's a perfect setup for understanding just how deep their family history goes. So now that we know where they sit on the family tree, let's look at that evolutionary roller coaster that got them here. Because the family Hyenidae is more than just one species.
Oh, it's way more. And the most striking thing is how much bigger the family used to be. It was once this vast, dominant group of predators. Today, we're left with just 4 living species, and those 4 show this incredible range of specialization.
And we can basically split them into, the 3 bone crushers and 1 insect eater.
That's a good way to put it. First, you got the one everyone knows, the spotted hyena, Cocuta cocuta. This is your active pack hunter, but it's also a facultative scavenger. It can do both.
They're the biggest, the most famous, the ones we'll be focusing on a lot.
Then you have the 2 rarer species. They're a bit more solitary and much more focused on scavenging. That's the brown hyena with its shaggy coat and the striped hyena. They're both what we'd call obligate scavengers, really relying on carrion. But they still have those incredibly powerful jaws.
And then there's the oddball.
The total oddball.
Yeah.
The little aardwolf. It looks like a miniature striped hyena, but it went in a completely different direction. It became a specialized insectivore.
Eating what exactly?
Almost exclusively harvester termites. This tiny little hyena can eat up to 300,000 termites in a single night.
300,000? How?
It just licks them up with its long, broad, sticky tongue. It basically gave up the bone-crushing jaws of its cousins for a completely different lifestyle.
That is extreme specialization. And you can see how this plays out in their genetics too, right? In terms of their population health.
You can. The sources are really clear on this. The brown and striped hyenas have very low genetic diversity today. It suggests they've gone through some rough patches, some population bottlenecks.
Okay.
But the spotted hyena and the aardwolf, they maintain much higher genetic diversity. That tells you they've had more stable, larger populations over a much longer period of time.
So let's rewind the clock. Let's go back, 22 million years ago? Miocene Eurasia. What did the first hyenas even look like?
Nothing like a hyena you'd recognize. Their ancestors were small, civet-like animals, probably lived in trees. The earliest one we know of, POV reverps, was this lithe, agile little creature.
Not a bone crusher.
Not at all. But as they moved into more open environments, they developed longer legs, more pointed jaws. They started to look, well, a lot like the dogs that were evolving on other continents at the same time.
And around 15 million years ago, at the peak of their diversity, the family split. Two major strategies emerged.
Right. This is their golden age. We know of over 30 fossil species, and they split into two groups. First, you had the dog-like hyenas, things like Ichthyotherium.
Dog-like hyenas?
Yeah, nimble, wolfish animals, and they were wildly successful. In some Miocene fossil sites, the remains of these dog-like hyenas outnumber all other carnivores combined.
And let me just process that. There was a time when the dominant wolf-like predator across Eurasia wasn't a wolf or a dog, but a hyena that looked like a dog.
That's exactly right. They owned that niche.
So what on earth happened to them? Where did they all go?
They got hit by a perfect storm. Climate change altered their habitats, and then the real Canudes, the ancestors of modern dogs, finally arrived in Eurasia from North America. The competition was just too much.
An ecological squeeze play.
A total squeeze play. And the only survivor of that entire dominant dog-like lineage.
Let me guess. The ancestor of the little insectivore.
The aardwolf. It survived by finding a niche that no one else was using. Termites became its lifeboat.
Meanwhile, the second group, the bone-crushing hyenas, they survived by doubling down on what made them unique.
They did. They survived the climate shifts and the new competition by becoming extreme specialists. They took over the scavenging niche. They developed these heavy, powerful bodies and jaws that could access a food source nothing else could touch.
And marrow inside large bones.
Marrow. And when we say bone crushing, we're not talking about something small. We're talking about monsters.
Like Pachycurcuta.
Exactly. A mega scavenger.
Yeah.
We estimate it weighed around 200 kilograms.
That's 440 pounds. Bigger than a lioness.
Substantially bigger.
Yeah.
And its jaws were so powerful, it was capable of splintering the bones of elephants.
Wow. An animal like that just roaming the landscape, cracking open an elephant femur. That's a whole different level of carnivore.
It gives you a sense of the power that lineage once had. Eventually, that giant was replaced by the smaller, but just as specialized, Crocuta, the spotted hyena we have today. The specialization itself was the key to their survival.
And before we move on to the modern spotted hyena, there's one last little genetic wrinkle in the family tree, right? It wasn't just a clean split.
Right. This is where it gets messy and fascinating. The genomics show what we call phylogenetic discordance. It means some parts of the genome tell a different story than others. Meaning there was gene flow introgression between the aardwolf lineage and the ancestral brown and striped hyena lineage.
So like two branches on the tree that were supposed to be splitting apart actually touched and reconnected for a bit.
That's a perfect way to visualize it.
Yeah.
It means they were still able to interbreed for a while, before the aardwolf went full insectivore, probably before about 4 million years ago. They weren't as different back then.
It just shows evolution isn't always a straight line.
Not at all. And interestingly, the final split, when the bone crushers really became their own thing, seems to line up with the arrival of true dogs in Africa, which really supports the idea that competition from canids is what forced hyenas into this extreme, specialized niche that allowed them to survive.
What a history. And that brings us perfectly to the modern champion, the spotted hyena. So if you take away one single thing from this entire deep dive, it has to be this. The idea of the spotted hyena as a cowardly scavenger is just wrong.
It needs to be permanently retired. Spotted hyenas are, by every metric, skilled, strategic, and incredibly efficient hunters.
And the data backs this up.
Oh, completely. In many regions, they generate a staggering 70 to 80% of their food from their own kills. not from scavenging.
70 to 80%?
They are apex predators, full stop. They go head-to-head with lions all the time
Yeah.
because they're hunting the same animals.
And they do it with coordinated pack strategies, right? This isn't just opportunistic chasing.
No, it requires communication, timing. They surround their prey. They chase relentlessly. They're built for it. They're endurance athletes.
Huge hearts and lungs, I read.
Exactly. Compared to their body size, they're huge. It allows them to just jog for miles without tiring, and they can sustain a sprint of 50 kilometers an hour.
About 31 miles per hour.
For over 3 kilometers. When they take down a wildebeest or a zebra, it is through sheer coordinated persistence.
But the thing that really gives them their edge, the tool that let their ancestors survive when the dog-like hyenas vanished, is those jaws.
That bite force is legendary, and for good reason. Some studies have clocked it at 4,500 newtons, which is roughly 1,100 pounds per square inch, PSI.
Okay, put 1,100 PSI in context for me. What is that like?
Imagine a small passenger car. Now imagine all the weight of that car resting on a tiny 1-inch square.
Okay, wow, that's unimaginable force.
And that force lets them do what almost no other predator can. Shatter the long bones of huge animals to get at the marrow inside.
And that marrow is a jackpot.
It's a nutrient jackpot. It's rich in fats, minerals. It's the ultimate competitive advantage. When lions are done with the carcass, the hyenas move in and clean up everything. They utilize a resource that's completely unavailable to their competitors. It's key to their survival.
So if the bite is their key physical adaptation, the social structure is their key behavioral one, and it is truly one of a kind. Let's talk about the matriarchy.
Spotted hyena society is completely dominated by females, top to bottom. Clans can get huge, over 130 members, and the whole thing is female-led. It's incredibly rare in the mammal world.
And the females are physically different.
They are. They're typically larger, more muscular, and way more aggressive than the males. They maintain absolute social dominance over every single male in the clan.
And this isn't just like a loose arrangement, it's a strict linear hierarchy.
It is rigid, and it's matrilineal, meaning rank is passed down from the mother. It's not earned, it's conferred at birth. A cub inherits a rank directly below its mother's.
So the stability of that system must be incredible.
It's shocking. So even the lowest ranking female in the clan, she still outranks the highest ranking most dominant male.
That's amazing. Half the population is just completely subordinate to the other half by birthright.
And it's not a temporary thing. There are these incredible long-term studies. Clans that were first studied back in the 1970s are now being run by the great-granddaughters of the original matriarchs.
So power is passed down for generations. It's like a royal dynasty.
It really is. Daughters stay in their birth clan, they inherit their mother's rank and her network of allies, which just strengthens the female lineage.
But what about the young males?
They have to leave, they disperse, travel hundreds of kilometers sometimes, and try to join a new clan. And when they get there, they start at the absolute bottom of the ladder.
Right at the bottom, regardless of how big or strong they are.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And they have to spend years just trying to slowly work their way up. It's a tough life. And what's interesting is that a mother's rank gives her son a head start even after he leaves. Sons of high-ranking females tend to do better in their new clans.
So it pays to be born into the right family, even if you have to leave it.
It absolutely does.
And this need to navigate such a complex, competitive social world, that's what leads us to the next big surprise, their intelligence.
This is where the science gets really exciting. For years, scientists have talked about the social complexity hypothesis.
Which is the idea that living in a big, complicated society where you have to track allies, enemies, ranks, that it favors the evolution of a bigger, smarter brain.
Exactly. And it was developed to explain the big brains of primates like baboons and macaques. But when you look at the social structure of a spotted hyena clan,
The size, the strict ranking, the competition, the cooperation.
you see these striking parallels with those primate societies. The argument is that similar social pressures should result in convergent intelligence. And the evidence just keeps confirming it.
So dominance isn't just about being the biggest and toughest brawler.
Not at all. In hyenas, just like in primates, dominance is not about pure brute strength. It's about the strength and complexity of your network of allies. And to build that network, you need to spend your youth learning the entire social map of your clan.
Memorizing everyone's position in history. But what about understanding relationships that don't directly involve them? You know, third-party recognition.
This is where it gets into like social calculus. And they can do it. Researchers found that if hyena A fights with hyena B, hyena A is then more likely to go and challenge a relative of hyena B.
Wait, really? So they know who is related to whom? And they use that information to pick their next fight.
Exactly. They are tracking kin and rank relationships among all their clanmates and using that knowledge to make strategic decisions. It's incredible.
And they value certain partners over others.
They do. They've been shown to strongly prefer hanging out with high-ranking non-kin over lower-ranking individuals. They're seeking out powerful political allies, just like you see in baboons.
Wow. And their vocalizations? They can tell each other apart just by sound?
Oh, yeah. They can distinguish the unique whoops of their kin from non-kin, and they react more intensely the more closely related the caller is. They can recognize a great ant's call.
Okay, but this is the one that really blew my mind. The cooperative problem-solving experiments. The double rope tasks.
Yeah. The results were just astonishing. They set up this task where two hyenas had to pull two ropes at the exact same time to get a food reward.
A classic cooperation test.
And captive hyenas, with zero training, solved it extremely quickly. The researchers even said that hyenas seem more hardwired for social cooperation than chimpanzees, who usually need a lot of training to solve the same puzzle.
They solved it faster than a chimp. How is that even possible? Why would a hyena with all that internal aggression and hierarchy be better at cooperating than a primate?
Well, two things. First, their whole evolutionary history is built on cooperative hunting, so they have this innate drive to synchronize their efforts. But second, their performance was really sensitive to the social context.
What do you mean?
Well, for example, they solved the puzzle faster when they had an audience, when other hyenas were watching them.
So social pressure helped, but what about that hierarchy? Did it ever get in the way?
Oh, absolutely. When researchers paired two dominant females together, they often failed. Their aggression toward each other, their desire to dominate, it just destroyed the synchronization they needed to succeed.
Fascinating. So social status can actually get in the way of problem solving? But the most amazing part was the role switching.
This is just pure adaptive genius. When they paired an experienced dominant animal with a subordinate who was totally new to the task, the dominant animal would actually switch roles.
It would. What?
It would submissively follow the lead of the naive partner to make sure they both got the reward. It would let the subordinate figure it out and just follow along.
They prioritized the food over the hierarchy, temporarily at least. That's incredible flexibility.
It's a level of social awareness and flexibility that really does suggest this convergent evolution of intelligence with primates.
And we can actually see the evidence for this inside their skulls, right?
Yeah.
The brain anatomy itself looks a bit like a primate's.
Yes, specifically in the expansion of the frontal cortex. That's the part of the brain linked to social behavior, planning, executive function. The fact that it's so developed in the spotted hyena is strong support for the social complexity hypothesis. It's a brain built for politics.
We've covered their brain power. Now, let's switch gears to their physical survival. How does an animal that's smart manage to live off rotten meat without constantly getting sick?
This is the molecular adaptation part of the story. It's why they're genetic geniuses. Recent genome sequencing gave us the answer. Scavenging means you're constantly exposed to a massive load of pathogens.
A biological minefield.
Exactly. So you need a biological shield. And the hyena genome shows clear evidence that they've built one. We see a couple of key strategies.
Okay.
First, we find these adaptive duplications in certain immunoglobulin family members, specifically a gene called IgKV41.
Immunoglobulins are antibodies, right? The body's defense force. So what does duplicating the gene for them do?
It's like upgrading your toolbox. If you have more copies of the gene, you can create a much more robust and diverse army of antibodies to fight off the huge range of bacteria you're eating every day. It's a genetic defense in depth.
More tools for a dirtier job. Makes sense. And what about positive selection? Genes that evolved faster in hyenas.
We see that too. Key immune-related genes, like one called TLR3. Think of these toll-like receptors as the body's early warning radar. They spot patterns associated with invaders.
So the hyena's version of this radar system is just better tuned to the specific threats they find in rotting carcasses.
Exactly right. The evolutionary pressure of their diet selected for variants of these immune genes that gave them superior resistance. It's a shield they built over millions of years.
A perfect marriage of the bone-crushing jaw to get the food and the reinforced immune system to process it safely. And the genetics also points to their social life.
It does. The genetics backs up the behavior. Researchers found what they call rapidly evolving conserved non-coding elements, or rCNEs.
That sounds complicated.
Let's simplify. Genes are the blueprints. RCNEs are like the dimmer switches. They don't make the protein, but they control when and how much of a nearby gene gets turned on. They're regulatory switches.
So we're looking at the parts of the genome that control the intensity of their social behavior.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the genes these RCNEs were next to are known to be involved in regulating social communication and cognition. The fact that these switches evolved so rapidly in hyenas suggests a powerful molecular engine driving their complex social abilities.
It connects the behavior we see in the wild right down to the molecular level. It's not just learned, it's deeply wired into their DNA.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered their surprising family tree, their evolution, their predatory skill, that intense matriarchy, their primate-like brains, and their high-tech immune system. Let's finish up with some other unique traits and the difficult reality of human-hyena conflict.
Right. Well, we mentioned their feliforms, and some of their behaviors reflect that. They're actually very meticulous groomers, much more like cats than dogs.
And their territorial marking is pretty unique, too.
It is. They have these massive anal glands that produce a creamy white paste. Researchers call the behavior buttering. They smear this paste on grass stalks to mark their territory.
And the smell. The sources had a very weird description.
It's incredibly strong. It's often described as smelling like boiling cheap soap or even something burning. It's a very intense chemical signature.
And unlike dogs, they never lift their leg to urinate because that's not what pee is for in their world. The paste is the message.
Right. And their defenses vary too. A striped or brown hyena might actually play dead if it's attacked by a lion. But a spotted hyena, it defends itself ferociously.
And that famous laugh is just one sound they make?
It's just one part of a huge vocal repertoire. The most important sound is probably the long-distance whoop, which they use to coordinate hunts and find each other over vast distances.
So let's turn to the darkest side of this, the human dimension. They're powerful predators, and conflict is sadly inevitable.
It is. And attacks on humans, when they happen, they follow a predictable and chilling pattern. The victims are almost always the most vulnerable. Children, women, or sick men sleeping outside at night. They exploit weakness with terrifying efficiency.
And the way they attack it's very specific.
It is gruesome. They target the face, using that incredible jaw strength to crush facial bones or tear soft tissue away. It minimizes risk to themselves.
And historically, there have been some really intense periods of conflict.
There have. Theodore Roosevelt wrote about how hyenas in Uganda would target people sick with sleeping sickness in their camps. They learned who the easy targets are.
And we know there had been specific, large, man-eating individuals.
Yes, there are accounts of pairs of very large hyenas that specialized in hunting humans. A pair in Malawi in 1962 were weighed at 72 and 77 kilograms. That is much larger than average.
And there were those reports from Malawi in the late 50s and early 60s.
Right. What's key there is the seasonal pattern. Attacks spiked in September at the height of the dry season. People were sleeping outdoors to escape the heat, and at the same time, bushfires made it harder for the hyenas to hunt their normal prey.
So their adaptability, their intelligence for finding food and assessing risk, it turned against humans when conditions got tough.
Exactly. Their cognitive skills, which make them brilliant hunters, also make them dangerous predators when the situation changes. It just underscores the lethal potential of these hyper-adapted animals.
So what does this all mean? We've gone through 22 million years of history. We've seen their dog-like relatives go extinct, while the specialists, the bone crushers, survived.
They are cat relatives that evolved to act like super dogs with jaws that can break elephant bones, a high-tech immune system, and an intelligence that converges with primates.
They are not low-life scavengers. They are deeply complex social geniuses, hardwired for success in every way.
Their entire biology and psychology are built around managing a complex social world.
Right. The science is clear. They rely on tracking third-party relationships. They can rank kin versus non-kin. They solve cooperative problems faster than chimps.
And that deep adaptive wiring for social complexity, combined with their high genetic diversity today, it really begs a final provocative thought for you to consider.
Okay, let's have it.
We've seen that specialization was the key to their survival through massive global change. We know they can adapt their social dynamics and problem-solving under pressure. So given all that, does this deep adaptive wiring for social complexity suggest that the spotted hyena is uniquely prepared among all large carnivores to predict and navigate the growing instability and human encroachment of the modern African ecosystem?
They can already outcompete lions and outthink primates. What does the future hold for the matriarchal, bone-crushing genius of the savannah?